is to demonstrate how to use the character paragraph, some of the tools in the character paragraph palette to make like a type quote. So we're going to use type and find a favorite quotation and design it. So to get started here, very, very important distinction with the type tool. We don't want to just click and have point type. We want to have area type, because that way our paragraph tools are going to work the way that we want them to. So to create area type, I selected the type tool. I'm going to click and drag a box that I can type into. Okay, now I found a quote, so I'm going to paste that quote into here. And what you notice when I have the type tool and its area type, I can move this in and it'll bump, the type to where it, it'll adjust to whatever the width is of the column. Right now the font is way too small, so I'm going to highlight it. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger to work with, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I want to split this up into a few lines, and so I can have her down on her own line. And then I'm just going to read this quote real quick. If you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. So I think I'm going to split this here. You'll never have enough, put that on its own line. And then I'm going to take this, you'll always have more, put that on its own line, and then drop this down if you look at what you don't have in life. So I'm going to keep it like that. And next, I'm going to start thinking about fonts on this one. So I've got all these settings up here, right? Deja Vu Sans, book. But another place is the character palette, which is over here. And I can also get to it through window and then character. But CHA, character. And you'll notice that buddied up with this character palette is the paragraph palette, which we're also going to be using. So, and then in the character palette, here's my font choices again, font families, size, and we're going to talk about these things as well for tracking and letting. So I'm going to highlight all the type, Control A, and then I'm going to go up to here, and I'm going to limit my fonts. And you can always click all and then off. I'm going to click it off, and then I'm going to want to look at script fonts and serif fonts. All right, and then I'm going to something in the Finder there. Okay, so now I'm looking at these, and I'm just going to go kind of quick with this. So I'm just going to pick a font there. Okay, that looks nice. And I want this to stand out a little bit more. I want some type contrast. So I might go with a script font there. Take a look at that one. Maybe try a different one. All right, we'll go for that one for now. And the Y, I want to capitalize that. Oh, not like that though. And then I'm going to look at which font this is, Dancing Script. I'm going to do the same thing down here. Type it in. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so now I want this to stand out. You can see it's not really the things that I want to emphasize aren't being emphasized, so I want to make sure I make them bigger. And so I can drag this up. You can see it goes up to 150. I can actually go bigger if I type in a value and type in something like 300 if I want in there. That's obviously way too big. Try some 125. Too big for the line. So I can move this over. And I could also take the type thing and kind of slide this over too if I want to make it a little bigger that way. I can get rid of the quotations here. We know it's a quote, so I don't need to have them unless it's part of my design. All right, so I'll go with something like that. And I want to match it, so see what size this was again. This is something that happens with Photopea, is it'll kind of wipe it away from what you were doing there. You might have to memorize it. $87. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to make this, just type the value right in, 87. So it's the same. And I like how this is all on one line. If you look at what you have in life, this one isn't though. So I'm going to go smaller here. Make sure it's going to be able to fit on the same line. So that's 44. I could do the same here, just make this 44. Let's type in the value so it matches. Make this 44. Okay. And so now what I want is I want justified alignment, which means that it'll be lined up on the left and lined up on the right. The bottom line is the exception, because that I could have a line to the right. That's kind of typical for like a, quote attribution to be pushed to the right there. So I'm going to take these 4 lines, and then I'm going to go up to paragraph, and I'm going to click on, this is the justify button all the way over here to the right. This is justify all lines. Some of them are, if I was setting up a newspaper magazine article, justify left line to the left. There's different kind of ways to do it, but that's left align, center align, right align, and these are 4 kinds of justifying, changing different on what happens with the last line. I'm just going to go justify all lines, and you can see what it did is it created some line space here and bumped those, created space between the words to make them fit right up to the end. Okay, now everything lines up with the end. The bottom line, I can take that and bump that over to the right. Now sometimes if everything didn't line up quite so nicely, I can change the tracking here as well, and tracking will create a little bit more space between letters. So if I go a little bigger like this, right, that makes a little bit more space between the letters there. Okay, you can see what that's doing. Which, I could decide that, hey, I really like it kind of on spaced out like that on 2 lines. But I'm going to go back to what it was. Let's give it a little bit extra. Perfect. All right, so that fits across real nicely there. Now the next thing that's a little bit off is the spacing between the lines, because this looks like it's these two, the second and third lines look like they're too close to each other, even though the top first and second line are supposed to be together and the third and fourth line are supposed to be together. So I'm going to try to close up this spacing here. So there's this button, this is leading right here. And if I use this, you'll see, again, it's a little bit funny with Photopea. Well, in this case, it works out pretty well, but a lot of times the leading, you can't quite set it right, so you got to type the value in manually. So if I type in a value like 300, see it moves it way down. But it looked like 85 was pretty good. So I'm going to do the same right here. I'm going to make this the same spacing, 85. Brings that up, and then I want to create a little more spacing right there. So here's where I can, use the slider. Yeah, it looks pretty good there. And I think that was, and then I'm going to highlight this one, and same thing, change the leading. So Oprah Winfrey is like right on top of enough. So I want to bump that down a little bit. That looks good. Okay, now I can take all of the type. And if I'm on the move tool, if I want to make the whole thing bigger, I can now drag from the corner and make the whole thing bigger if I'm selected on the move tool. And I can move it into the center there to center everything. And now I could get creative with colors and backgrounds and all of that kind of thing. I'm just going to go with a simple color change on this one. I'm going to highlight the text, go up here to the text color. I'm going to pick a kind of grayish mint kind of green, and then I'm going to select this type here, go with more of a blue, darker, say OK. Now if I want this one to match, I'm going to highlight that text, go into the color, and then use the color picker. See, I can pick from here, but I can also pick straight from the composition, and that will just match that color exactly. And there is my justified type quote.